Netanyahu warns of horrible nuclear war if Iran gets atomic weapons. America and China prepare for war over Taiwan. And J6 committee chairman claims he didn't have access to January 6 footage. All this and more today on Endtime. Welcome to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We're so happy you've joined us today. We have open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Today is Open Line Friday, so we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So be sure to call in and let us know. Obviously, there are big headlines in the news today, one of them being that Netanyahu has warned that there will be a horrible nuclear war if Iran gets atomic weapons. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, I want to remind you that we have 3 brand new Endtime originals coming out this month. If you go to endtime.com/new, it will take you to where you need to go to learn more about what these shows are that are coming out. So Doug did a video on the 2 witnesses. I did one called Warn the Jews. Dave did one called The Antichrist Socialistic Kingdom. Those start releasing next Friday. So they're free to anybody who's on Endtime Plus already. If you're not on Endtime Plus already, you can start your free trial today by going to endtime.com/new, and those will begin releasing next week. And before we get into these crazy headlines, Doug, we're happy to have a very special guest with us. I know Linda here is intimidating. Linda, you've been a longtime friend of Irvin and Judy Baxter, Endtime Ministries, and my friend, and I'm so appreciative of your guidance and your wisdom. You've helped us a lot over the last several years, in particular me personally. And you've never been on the show in person, but you're on our board of directors here at Endtime. I don't know how much you want to tell about who you actually are, but I'll let you do that. So welcome to the Endtime Show. We're so happy to have you. I guess tell our audience a little bit about yourself as much as you'd like.
Okay, well, thank you for having me both. It was a bit of a surprise. I just got off the airplane less than an hour ago.
This is true.
And was told wanted on the show today. So I'm a trial attorney, so I'm never short on words. And I thought with the Lord's help, I'd know exactly what to say today.
Amen.
That's very true.
That's why she's intimidating.
Oh.
That's right.
She's a trial attorney.
She will let you know.
Yes.
She's let me know a few times. Now, Linda.
Yes.
How in the world did you learn about Endtime?
Well, I'll give you the Cliff Note version because it is somewhat detailed, but I started studying prophecy. It was probably in 1978, 1979, and there was a movement going on at that time where people were searching for more than what they were getting in their regular denominational churches, and it was a bit of a revival that was sweeping the land for people to know more and experience more of what the Lord had. And so I started attending some in-home Bible studies, and my mother-in-law at that time was involved in, I was raised Southern Baptist, so, we know the Bible forward and backwards. And so
Doug knows all about that.
She thought I would know all about it, and she started asking me some of these questions about prophecy, and I didn't know the answers to them. Used to drive my dad crazy because I was constantly asking why. I've always been very inquisitive, so that set me on this path to start trying to find the answers. Because when you're raised Southern Baptist, you pretty much think you know the Bible. So I realized I didn't. And, pardon me. So I started searching the scriptures about prophecy and end times and what was going to happen. And the same time I was doing that, I was going to these other Bible studies where a lot of this was being taught, but it was always being taught pre-trib rapture.
What's wrong with that? Like, in that moment, if you didn't know anything about any of it, why did that not feel right?
Well, and even I did the same thing after I met Irvin and I started studying his material. I did not accept it just because he said it. I checked out every single word that came out of his mouth.
There's the attorney coming out of here.
And so, the same thing with these others. I would hear these Bible teachers, And I thought, I want to know it for myself. I don't want somebody else telling me what to believe the Bible says. So I started studying and studying and studying. And I put it out on my dining room table, and I had study books, and I had the Thompson Chain Bible, so I could go all through the chains in the Bible on certain topics. And I couldn't get past the seventh trumpet, that is the actual return of the Lord. So going back to my little Bible study, you know, I'd talk to these supposed learned teachers, and I would question. I've always questioned. And they would get really annoyed with me. And I kept saying, I'm not being disrespectful. I can't understand how you're getting pre-trib when the Bible specifically says, at the last trump, the Lord comes. It became really a point of contention because I was like a dog with a bone at that point. And they just wanted me to be quiet. And it really got so uncomfortable. They just wouldn't answer my questions anymore, and pretty much didn't want me going to the Bible studies. So I set it aside, and I thought, okay, God, I don't quite understand all this, but okay. Pardon me. And then about that time, talk radio was getting really popular. So I was out driving around on a lunch hour one day, and I thought, I want to see what this talk radio is all about. And I just started punching the keys on my radio, and all of a sudden it stopped on this very kind, grandfatherly, patient voice that just happened to be talking about the tribulation. And when I say just happened to be, I don't believe in coincidences. So he was telling the story. Somebody had called in wanting to know whether he was pre-trib or post-trib. And he started telling the story about the way he was raised. It was pre-trib. And he was trying to be very gentle and very kind. And, well, I started studying, and so it really tweaked my interest, because I thought, what is he going to say? I actually pulled over the side of the road as he started getting closer to the answer. And then he finally said, but I've studied them, and now I am post-trib. I remember sitting in my car going, my gosh, there's two of us. There's two of us in the entire world. And so I would take my lunch hour every day, and that was in Indianapolis. At that time, it came on the radio there at 2 in the afternoon, so that's when I took my lunch hour. And I drove around the whole time listening to the program. Well, there were so many crazy things happening at that time: false teachers, false doctrine, false information. And I remember thinking, I wonder if he's like the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain somewhere. So I'm going to go check him out. And that's when all the Baxter still lived in Richmond, Indiana. So I called one day, and I said, I'd like to come over and visit you. I'd like to see the studio. And really, it was just for me to make sure it wasn't a big farce.
Well, we got to pause you there because we're coming up on a break, unfortunately.
Okay.
Are you willing to stay for one more
Sure,
segment? She's only supposed to be for one segment, but she's going to stay for one more to finish this story. We're so happy to have Linda with us today. We do have open lines at 877-Endtime, 877-363-8463. We'll be getting to your calls on the other side of the break. We'll be right back.
They that understand what is taking place will instruct many.
Except a man is born again, he can't enter or see the kingdom of God.
I don't care what label you've been given or what label you've given yourself. You are essential. You still matter.
This is a journey, and when we get to the other side of that, that's where our prize is. That's where our reward is.
Endtime is not going anywhere.
Satan and the elites of this world don't want you to understand the timeline leading to the second coming of Jesus. You can pinpoint where we are in the end time, understand how you fit in, and be filled with hope in God's plan by watching The Future According to Bible Prophecy. Go to endtime.com/future or call 800-ENDTIME. That's 800-363-8463.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the End of the Age television and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or visit endtime.com/events for more information.
Welcome back to End Time. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We have a very special guest with us today, Linda Sargent. She is on our board of directors, been a long-time follower of End Time and a very dear friend to our family and the whole End Time team, so we're grateful to have her with us. Before we get back into her story, she was just telling us about how she thought she was the only one in the world that believed in a post-tribulation rapture, and then she was turning the dial on her radio one day and came across a man talking about it. It happened to be Irvin Baxter, and of course it was our show. And she said, I have to figure out who in the world this guy is, make sure he's not like the Wizard of Oz behind this curtain. And so she drove over to Richmond, Indiana, where End Time was based out of at the time, and she wanted to meet everybody. I think that's where we left off. Yes. Is that a fair overview?
That's correct, yes.
All right.
And so I did. I went over there and went to church with the family, and then Jana, Irvin's daughter, took me through the studio. I actually saw the materials. I saw the warehouse. I saw where the broadcast was. It looked like it had been there a while and not just set up because they knew I was coming. Yes. So I thought, well, okay, I think I'll keep listening. I think this is legitimate. And then I started buying some of the materials, went through the Understanding the End Time series. Most fascinating teaching materials I had ever heard. I can remember just sitting and listening to it and thinking, oh my goodness. It does. It just opens up your understanding. And just been friends with the family, followed the ministry, have been to Israel for the Israel tour, got baptized in the Jordan River. When they used to come to Indianapolis and do their conferences, they stayed in my home, he and Judy, and we just became like family. We call each other family. And Irvin and I have had many, many discussions and reason together, as the Bible tells us to do. Sometimes we didn't always agree, and we would just have to agree to disagree.
Now to remind everybody, you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed to be part of some of these conversations.
That's right, yes.
Sit there and listen to you all go back and forth.
Yes.
It was very loving, but
always.
It was fun to listen to.
Always,
I enjoyed
always.
Two very smart people talking about things and figuring stuff out. So
that's right. And I remember at his passing, I just and I still live in Indiana, so I came for the celebration of his life, and I remember getting on the plane just thinking, oh my, so many times I've come down here to visit my family, my friends, and now we are coming to bury my dear friend. And the one thing I just kept thinking is, Irvin, I will miss our conversations. I knew he was where he had always planned to be, and that was where he had his eye on that heavenly place with the Lord. But
he often talked about how death is not a destination, it's a doorway.
That's right.
And so as his grandson, he's been in my life forever, so I was pre-programmed to actually celebrate this, that this isn't a destination, that he's living his best life now. And so that the way he talked about it for so long helped a lot of us get to that point where we could navigate those waters and still follow the leading of the Spirit and not be overcome by
that's right, grief.
The grief of a loss of such a great man. So
I do remember one thing from his service that I appreciated so much. It brought humor to it. He passed on November 3rd, which was election year.
Indeed.
And I believe, Vince, you, as part of your tribute to him, you mentioned that he had the prophecy that Trump was going to lose, and he just said, "Okay, I'm out of here."
I don't know if that was me, but it's funny nonetheless.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was you, as I recalled it. But I thought, and that yes, that's Lord didn't took him, so he didn't have to see kind of the mess we're in right now.
It's crazy because Doug, I don't know if you're aware, Linda, but Doug found End Time on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bus driver. I think is that right, Doug?
Well, I found it long before that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was going through a rough spot in my life and really just searching and found him. I listened to a guy that used to be on the same program, on the same hour and the same channel, named Bob Larson, and we would kind of listen to him because he did like these really extreme things like cast demons out on the radio and things, so it was more entertainment than anything. And I stumbled across Pastor Baxter, and he was teaching on the trumpets, and as I'm driving down the road, he's telling me these trumpets have already started sounding. I've never heard anything like that in my life, so I started writing notes down.
You're a good old Baptist boy too, right?
Yeah, good old
That's
Baptist
right.
boy. And so I'm writing this stuff down, and I get home and start checking it out, and I said, oh my goodness, I think this guy's right. And fell in love, and just listened to everything he said, and later became a minister because of him. And so I'm right there with you and understand the impact. And what you said, he would pull you into that conversation because he had that gentle voice that welcomed you in. He could tell a story like nobody I've ever heard in my life. One of my favorite sermons, he talked about Elisha getting a double portion of the blessing on Elijah's life because he saw Elijah go up in the whirlwind. And when he preached that, it's the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. I'd never heard anybody preach it like that. And it was just amazing. He had me mesmerized in that sermon. And so that's one of my favorite sermons he ever taught. But it was
he had a way of doing that.
Yeah, he really did. It just, it's amazing. And look at all the people that he's brought into our lives. I mean, you're one of them that he's brought into all of our lives because of his ministry and what God did through that. So it's pretty amazing to hear, how you were the same way, because that's how I was. I had to know more. When he taught me that, I had to know more.
Now, a cool thing about Irvin's ministry is, I don't know why, but for some reason, where he pastored, they were recording his sermons. And so we have literally thousands of cassette tapes of old Irvin messages that he preached. We're in the process of making those digital, and they are on Endtime Plus. There's actually a whole section there now, dozens of old Irvin sermons from when he was pastoring. So you can hear some of those stories that Doug was just talking about if you go to Endtime Plus and check out the sermon audios there from Irvin Baxter. So do that. Now, Linda, you said you came over to see if Endtime and Irvin was legit.
Yes.
So you saw us. Was it in the double wide then, or had they moved across the street?
It was
by that
across
time?
the street.
So you didn't see the good thing you didn't see the double wide because you
Yeah.
might have left.
I might have, yes, bolted.
But so now, so we had a flood here.
Yes.
Our building, good portion of it was destroyed. This is the first time you've seen it in a year, and it's changed dramatically
It
since
has.
you saw it last year. We haven't opened it up to the public yet, but we are going to do an event here once the construction's finished to do kind of like an open house and welcome everyone back in. Okay, we're not in the old double wide anymore. We're not in that old bank that we then moved to and you got to tour. What do you think about what's going on here now?
Well, like you said, I have not been here in a year. And I remember, I think it was in 2006 when you actually bought the building, when Endtime bought the building. And I was down here for a conference at that time, and we all toured and it was a mess then. It was under construction, construction materials everywhere, cords everywhere. So to see it transformed from 06 to when then you all moved your offices in here was pretty dramatic. There's so many things that happen to us in our lives. When it happens, we look at it and we think it's a disaster. But you can look at this now, and what the devil meant for evil has been turned into good. It is phenomenal, the way the studio looks, the way the entrance looks. It looks like a 5-star luxury facility. And so even though you've been through, 3 years now of...
We're just over 2 years, and of course we've shared that of course, insurance is doing a lot of work here, but then a partner came in and they've donated this money to help us remodel. And so it's been quite amazing to see the transformation here and to know, you know, Irvin, I was just talking to Judy about this morning, actually. And by the way, Judy is in studio with us. You can't see her right now, but she's sitting right over there. Right. So if Doug and I are being more behaved than normal, that's why. Judy is in the studio. If you're watching on Facebook, comment hi Judy. Let her know how much you love her. Make sure you comment hi Judy right now. And don't forget to share either. Anyway, I haven't said that yet today. So what was I saying? I got off track.
The studio and
Judy,
how it's
I was talking to her.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff that Irvin talked about when we first moved in here, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever revealed this publicly and not very much privately. But when we started talking about this building, when we started talking about purchasing this building, I was not in favor of it. Now, I wasn't anybody to listen to back then, probably still not now, but we coming from a 3,000 square foot building, this is an almost 50,000 square foot building.
Oh, wow.
And so we're like, okay, we barely fill up 3,000 square feet. We're buying a building with 50,000 square feet, and how's all this going to happen? And, you know, I like plans. Well,
yes, you do.
The plan was God was going to provide, and here's the vision.
There it is.
I found a priority list that he had written out, and it was, I'm actually going to share it in our board meeting next week, but the number one thing was develop a daily news segment and to raise the money for the building remodel, and he's got 16 points on there that he had handwritten out, and some of that stuff that he had written on there hadn't happened yet. But now it's 10 years old, and I've seen it develop, and I've seen it grow, and I see what God's doing with Endtime today. And I shared yesterday, I was at CPAC last week, and these connections that I've been blessed to make with some people that, you know, people would know their name and what God's doing. It's like, I can't even explain what God's doing because there's so much happening. We don't have enough time to talk about all of it. And I see like some of the vision that Irvin had and how it's developed.
Right.
And then there's more stuff that he talked about that hasn't happened yet. Look at all of this. I mean, this is stuff that he talked about.
Right,
And we didn't know how it was going to happen. We didn't know how the money was going to come or whatever. We didn't even have to have the money. God brought in people that had the money.
That's right.
And there isn't an obstacle that's too big. And you know Endtime's DNA. You know that we walk by faith, not by sight.
That's right.
You know that we believe that all things work together for the good. And so to see what God has done with our team, with all of our partners, it is magnificent. And you're like one of the first people to get to see outside of our direct team.
I walked through here in construction zone in 2006. I think we had to put on hard hats when we were here to even get in the building because it was in total disarray at that point. And to see it now, and it, you know.
What do you think Irvin would think? Because some people will, you know, some people aren't real happy about change. You know, a lot of people struggle with change. And,
are you talking about yourself again, Vince?
Well, actually, I'm actually decent with change. But,
okay, good.
You know, losing Irvin's a big deal. I get it.
It was a big deal.
None of us are Irvin, and we're not trying to be. But I do wear his shoes. Actually,
yeah, I was looking at those a few minutes ago.
Got his jacket on, his shirt. But none of us are trying to be Irvin. You know, we're trying to be who God's called us to be. God put us in this position for a reason. We don't necessarily know why. We talk about we're kind of rednecks, you know, and God's made a way.
Not kind of rednecks.
Yeah, well, that's true. We both live in the country, and you're more in the country than I am, but
well, we're both rednecks.
So
well, Jesus called his disciples, and they were a ragtag team, the island of misfits, you could even call them. They didn't know anything. They had tempers. They were just like most of us.
Exactly. But to see what God has done has been incredible, and we're so blessed to be part of it. And you being someone that's not here all the time, just curious of what you're thinking about, because like I said, we're going to have an open house. I was getting it. A lot of people don't like change. A lot of people don't like that Irvin's not here anymore, and we say ditto to that. But change is happening, and it's not always comfortable, but God's still working. And it's still amazing to be a part of what he's doing.
Well, I'm very inquisitive, and I have conversations with the Lord just like I'm talking to you. So I have asked him many, many times, what was that all about? You took Irvin. I mean, he's our friend, he's our husband, he's our pastor.
Judy's husband.
I'm pointing to Judy over there.
For the people watching on the radio, just want to verify they understand.
I pointed over to Judy.
We don't need another scandal around here.
And it was so surprising. It was shocking. We all really expected that the Lord would heal him that day. And Judy was calling, and Kira was calling, and I mean, we were crying on the phone, and I was going, this cannot happen. So, you know, I've what was that all about, God? Right. You know, of course, he's sovereign, so he doesn't have to talk, you know, explain anything to Linda, which has been a hard lesson for me to learn, but it's helped all of us grow even more.
Absolutely.
And Irvin started mentoring everybody years ago. So that when the time came, because I think in his mind, he was expecting during these times, he would be traveling even more, and he would be ministering to Israel more. And he knew he had to leave you all prepared back here to carry on the message. And you asked me what I thought he would think of this. I really, it's going to be kind of slang, but I think he'd say, "You ain't seen nothing yet."
Amen.
Amen. That's awesome.
I said that very thing this morning in prayer.
Oh, did you?
That's
well,
a
there you go.
confirmation,
So. I don't think any of this is a surprise to him, because he had such a vision that the Lord trusted him with. And that's why he started years ago, putting people in place to help, because he knew he couldn't do it all.
Right. Well, Linda, you've got about 30 seconds before the break. Is there anything else you want to leave us with? You're going to go, you just got off the plane, and so you're going to go get refreshed, and we're going to start taking calls.
Okay.
So you want to leave us with anything?
Well, I appreciate being on the program today and getting to talk about my good friend. I love the ministry. I love the teachings. As I indicated, every time I would listen to a new lesson, I would be on the computer investigating every single word that came out of his mouth. And if he talked about a third of something in World War II, this happened and these ships were happening, I was sitting at my screen going, how many ships were sunk in World War II?
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Amen. Well, I think we're into the break.
Are we live?
I don't know what happened.
Oh my gosh.
Are we live?
Just like her.
We are live. Yes.
I don't know what happened just now. But we...
Our calling would be a prophetic ministry. Since we started Endtime Ministries, there have been many times we weren't sure how we would pay the bills, but God has always provided. We started with the magazine, then went on radio and TV, and now we have the Jerusalem Prophecy College in Israel and online and End of the Age Plus. The mission has always been to reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ and the end time message. Through the years, my husband would say, we will see revival like never before in the last days. We are living in the end time now. Thank you for walking this journey with us and continuing in prayer. You are a part of the team. Thank you for your generous support. It is necessary for God's purpose. The most important thing is that you are ready when the Lord comes. Our hope is to help prepare you for that day. God bless you, and we love you.
Welcome back to End Time. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We have open lines at 877 End Time, 877-363-8463. We're so delighted to have Linda Sargent with us for the first half of the show. And so, like I said before, Judy's in the studio with us, and they're still here, so we've got to be on our best behavior. Now, I do want to remind you that we're releasing 3 new End Time originals this month. You can go to endtime.com/new. That's where they will be posted when they go live. Starting next Friday, we have a session on Warn the Jews, the 2 witnesses, and the Antichrist Socialistic Kingdom. So you won't want to miss those. They release weekly starting next Friday. And Doug, you did a video on the two witnesses. A lot of people want to know, aren't the two witnesses Moses and Elijah? What's the quick answer?
The quick answer is, according to the Bible, I don't believe that's the case. I believe that those two witnesses will come in the power and the spirit of Elijah. But you'll have to check out the full DVD to see it, or the video, whatever we're
DVD
calling
on
it.
Endtime
What are we
Plus?
calling it? On Endtime Plus. You'll have to watch the program.
Well, yes, you go into great detail about that topic, and so that's the short answer, but there's a longer one that you'll want to hear. You can give us a call at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. We have open lines there. Doug, before we get to the calls, is there any stories that you want to share in particular? I know there's a lot going on right now.
Well, I think the biggest one is the one that we led in with about Netanyahu, and he kind of he actually did a program where he broadcasted straight to the Iranian people there and told them that it was a direct broadcast that was translated into their language. And he told them that if the Iranian people, if they get a nuclear weapon there in Iran, that would lead to a horrible nuclear war. So that's kind of the big story right now, because he's letting them know, this can't happen, and they're not going to allow that to happen. Well, not only are they not going to allow that to happen, but before he went on air with this broadcast, Vince, he spoke with our U.S. Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, and they had a conversation about it, and I'm sure he got the go-ahead to do that broadcast and let the people know that this is where we're heading. So,
what's that have? Why does that have significance with Bible prophecy?
Well, as we talk about all the time, that sixth trumpet war, we believe because it talks about the Euphrates River and the angels that are bound there being loosed and causing this war to happen. Well, this is the region that we always speak of, right there in the heart of the area where the Euphrates River runs through. Iran has always made threats that if they have the power to, they would totally annihilate the Israeli people, drive them into the ocean, destroy Israel, and drive them out of the land forever. And not only have they made threats like that to Israel, but we also know they call Israel the little Satan. They call us the big Satan. So is the little Satan first, and then they would take care of the big Satan. So they're a threat not only to Israel, but really to the entire world, because in this broadcast, Netanyahu let them know this would change the structure of the Middle East, because then you would have all of these Middle Eastern powers also vying to get nuclear weapons so that they can compete in a war against somebody that has this power. Everybody over there is actually afraid of Iran. It's one of the things that was so appeasing to this Middle Eastern area with the Trump Accords, whenever the Abraham Accords came out, was because they were pulling all those groups together under the umbrella that the United States will help protect the region from Iran and from a nuclear weapon. So that's kind of why this is all important. It could lead to a sixth trumpet war if this were to happen.
Speaking of sixth trumpet war, I see that China and America are preparing for war over Taiwan.
Yeah.
What significance does that have that people need to know about?
Well, another huge, story in the news there, because those have been the war drums that we've been hearing about World War III for a long time. But China actually can field the number of the army that is spoke of in Revelation chapter 9, when it talks about a 200 million man army. China's boasted about that. Here we are saying that we will always help protect Taiwan, and now China is trying to move in there and take Taiwan over. They've made many threats. They've had many, maneuvers where they've practiced coming in and taking Taiwan over. And so now we learn that our military, and especially our Marines, are specifically training for war with China. They've changed our desert colors on a lot of our vehicles to the jungle green, where we would be fighting in tropical forest. And that's what they're talking about in this article. That is always, I think that's from the Gateway Pundit. And so two big, huge stories in the news today. But this is open line, and we want to get to the calls, but
Absolutely.
Those are two big stories.
All right, we've got a few more of those to share, perhaps a little later on, but before we do, We will get to the calls. There are open lines at 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. We're going to start in Arkansas. Steve is watching there. Steve, welcome to the End Time Show.
Hey, I'm so glad you guys took my call. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're glad you called.
Hey, I just want to say I haven't been able to listen to you fellas in a while. I changed my work hours to 4, and today it was just a blessing from the Lord. I got off at 3 and able to hear the sis talk, and I was just so compelled to call and share my story because so many things she said it related to me personally, because I got saved in the early 80s.
Okay.
And I'm going to step up on you guys. I'm a Free Will Baptist.
Oh, okay.
If y'all don't know what that is, you can do a little research. We wash feet and all that stuff. But anyway, I'd gotten saved, and guys, I was like any true Christian, any born-again Christian, I was just hungry. And I didn't know where to start or how to begin. And one of the guys I listened to on the radio was a guy named Larry Burkett. He was a financial advisor. And I used to listen to him religiously, and just even to this day, a lot of his stuff helps me. But then I just stumbled on to Irvin, and at about the same time, there was a verse, and I'm embarrassed I can't tell you where it's at, but you guys know where it's at. It says in Revelation somewhere, first part of Revelation, he that studies the prophecies of this book is blessed. Blessed is he that studies the prophecies of this book. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
that
sir.
scripture?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just thought, well, here I am, a brand new Christian, and I don't know why, but I just thought, I want to be blessed. So I'm starting, and I'm reading this stuff, and the local church that I got saved in was a huge pre-tribulation, rapture, and then all this Left Behind. And this Left Behind series was really popular at this point.
Yeah.
And guys, this is the only way I know how to say this. It just didn't settle with me. I just thought, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem right. And so I know the Lord had to be instrumental in connecting me to listen to Irvin. And I can't tell you, Doug talked about he listened to the trumpets. I don't remember exactly how it started out, but I just know at some point I remember hearing Irvin talk about there's not a pre-tribulation rapture, and I started following him the best I could, and over the course of even today, I listen to you guys every time I can, and the only thing I can say, and I won't take up a lot of time, is that the pre-tribulation rapture thing just never was said. It didn't seem right. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And then Irvin explains it, and I've heard him explain it over the years so many times. And guys, I just want to say this: y'all were talking about how Irvin could convey and preach and teach. He just had something special about him. And, to me, the Bible talks about your spirit bearing witness. And I just felt like through the radio, this guy was in my living room with me.
Right.
And, the sincerity in his voice. And like the sis said right before she hung up, I'm researching this stuff. And he said a third of the ships sank in World War II. And lo and behold, if you research that, yes, they did. He wasn't making it up. Right. And it's just amazing how God put me in contact with Irvin, and now I listen to you guys, and Dave, he's almost as awesome as you two are.
Oh boy!
but you guys got a great ministry. I love y'all, and I love your ministry, and the core thing that I love about y'all even more than your end time teaching is that you want to see people saved and go to heaven when this life is over.
Amen.
Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate you sharing your perspective.
It's Revelation 1:3, Steve.
There you go.
That's your scripture.
Steve, we love your story. It's inspiring. We're honored to be connected with you. Thank you for being a longtime partner and listener. We appreciate it very much. We're going to New York now. Joe is listening there, and we do have open lines. So 877 End Time's the number to join us, 877-363-8463. Joe is listening in New York. Joe, welcome to the show.
You guys, again, you look beautiful, and thank you for having Linda. I was listening to her story, and it sounded, excuse me, I was hearing my testimony. You know, I got born again April 1978, and I went full head in for God, because I was part of a small non-denominational church called the Sheepfold here in Brooklyn, New York. And, you know, Bible studies twice a week, prayer meetings, all day Saturday night at the coffee house, you know, evangelizing all day Sunday. But before a year was gone, I couldn't stop reading the book of Revelation. And the thing of it is nobody wanted to talk about it. And I was amazed. I was a new young believer, and the pastor would just keep, you know, encouraging me, keep studying, follow the Holy Spirit. You've been baptized in the Holy Spirit, go that way. And right after that, he invited this man who wrote a commentary. The book was called Christians Will Go Through the Tribulation. This is about 1980, Dr. James McKeever. And he knew, and he said something, because I met him personally and hung out with him and his wife. And you know, there were so many people hearing false teachings, and this man was right on, but he didn't have all the insight that Irvin did, because, you see, he was only a part-time minister. But there's nobody like Irvin Baxter, nobody on the earth. But listening to Linda was a blessing, because I was banging my head against the wall until I met this person, because I knew something didn't sit right, this pre-trib, because I read Matthew 24 way back there, and I'm going, wait, it says after the tribulation. But I wasn't a scholar. I wasn't well educated. Where Irvin was so many hours and years he put into explaining it, and the gift from God on dear brother Irvin, who I miss him every day like you guys, is that God gave him such a gift of being able to communicate people so beautifully and calmly. And, you know, what can I say? It was just wonderful hearing Linda, and I was almost hearing my heart, because I know in those early years what I went through trying to understand, and people didn't want to talk about the book of Revelation. I would get things, oh, it's too deep, it's too symbolic.
Joe, we're coming up on a break here. I've got to cut you off. So sorry. I tell you, everybody loves you when you call, Joe. So people commented yesterday, the Joe Show. Comment again today. Let him know how much you love him. We have open lines at 877 Endtime, 877-363-8463. We'll be right back after the break.
I've been part of the Endtime family from the beginning over 30 years ago, when my parents, Irvin and Judy Baxter, began the ministry from the recliner in our living room. My name is Jana Robbins. I have the pleasure of connecting with our incredible partners every day. Endtime is a small nonprofit that runs a high-traffic website, a daily TV and radio show, the Prophecy College in Jerusalem, and more. Although we have less than 30 team members, we are able to serve tens of millions of people each month. We survive on the goodness of God and donations averaging about $50. If everyone hearing this message gave $22, our financial needs would be met for the year. If you only give to one cause per month, please consider partnering with Endtime to help get the message of our soon-coming King out to the world. Call us at 1-800-ENDTIME to give today, or go to endtime.com to become a monthly or one-time partner.
Welcome back to Endtime. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell. We have open lines at 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. There's a lot of talk about the timing of the rapture today. You know, we don't make an emphasis of that very much but when people ask us, we certainly do, and it seems like there's a lot of testimonies about that today. So we'll talk about it if you want to. It's open line, and again, we have some open lines at 877 Endtime. So if you've ever wanted to be on the show, now is the perfect time to call. We will go right here in Texas to Dr. Mike, a real good friend of Endtime as well. Dr. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I hope you are having a great day like I am.
Likewise, yes, sir.
So yesterday I received some exciting news or encouraging news. I got a text message from Kevin Freeman's associate talking about a bill that's going through the Texas legislation now, and Texas legislation only meets once every 2 years. Just a reminder to the audience that Kevin Freeman is head of the Economic War Room, and Dave Robbins interviewed him in a broadcast talking about his book According to Plan in December. So I wanted to just make awareness of what this is. There's a move for the state of Texas to constitutionally be able to issue their own state tender that is gold backed, and they already have a physical depository outside Austin. And what they plan to do as an alternative to the U.S. fiat, if we do see this hyperinflation or the central bank digital currencies, which they're gunning to introduce by 2025, they're going to try to offer an alternative in which people can, say, put $1,000 in the transactional, and then if there's the hyperinflation and that's worth $5,000, you'll be able to spend it with just a Visa debit card, and the receiving merchant won't know whether it's gold backed or U.S. fiat. They told me that the importance of this is that it might spread to the other states because Texas has such a large GDP that once Texas gets something like this, it may start spreading. I know Irvin was talking about that he saw that the United States would be outside the mark of the beast system, and in order to do that, something with getting away from the control of the central bank digital currencies, I think would be key to that. So I'm having to go back in the operating room, so I'm talking quickly, but there's a Senator Brian Hughes, and he's the one that's introducing it. So if people feel inclined to get support, it's not a bill yet, but they're trying to push it to get it. This legislation, if they wait till 25, it's probably be kind of late. As we race against central bank digital currencies.
All right. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for, I know you're a very busy man. Thank you for calling and making everyone aware of that. I know we'll be talking more about that in the coming weeks and months, so appreciate your call.
You know, Vince, it's one of the things that a lot of people are concerned about too, because, you know, with seeing the central digital currency that's coming out that they're talking about, they had a gentleman from the WEF that was speaking this year that was talking about they would be able to track everything that you purchase, keep you from purchasing things, and then of course we've talked about it a lot of times on here that they would be able to freeze your accounts if you were doing something that went against what the government wanted us to do. That would also be tied into like the 15-minute cities that we talk about, where if you get outside of your zone, you can be fined, and they can just digitally take that away from your bank account. So like a credit social system like China has. So that would keep us from being able to do those things. That's why it's important to, you know, kind of have that kind of legislation going right now. And I may not understand all the ins and outs of all that digital currency, but I definitely know I do not want that here. So,
well, what I hear is you better move to Texas. That's what I hear when I hear that. So that's going out to you, Linda. If you missed the first half, we've got a very special guest in studio with us, Linda Sargent, longtime friend of Endtime. She was on for the first half of the show, so we appreciate her joining us. She's still in studio. Judy's sitting over there. She's loving all the commentary about how Endtime has blessed people's life around the United States, around the world. Of course, Irvin was on camera. You all knew him well. What you might not have known is how much Judy supported him and helped him throughout all those years. And Endtime wouldn't be near what it is without Judy making sure Irvin was in line. So we are so appreciative of her. And she's in studio, like I said, and she's loving the testimonies that everyone is sharing. With that in mind, we're going to go to Florida now. Arthur is watching there. Arthur, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Oh, wow. I'm on there pretty quick. How you doing, Vince?
We're well. How are you?
Doug?
Good.
I don't know if you remember me, Vince. Arthur Leary, back when I used to live in South Carolina.
I remember you.
Your grandfather performed my wedding.
Yes.
With my wife, Ramika. And I know Judy, is she still in the studio?
She is, and she's saying...
I want to say hello to Judy. Haven't spoken to her in quite a long time. But I listen quite often. And
she's excited to hear your voice, Arthur.
Well, I'm nobody important. I'm just so thankful for what Irvin did for my life. And wow, I'm getting choked up here, so I'll try to call. It's been since November 3rd, 2020, and I've tried to call in a number of times, but I knew I would break down. Just because how Irvin affected me personally. I can't thank him enough for all he did for me. And I'm a nobody.
Arthur, why are you trying to make everybody cry?
I didn't think
Judy's over here tearing up.
I thought I was going to hold myself together. But
You're a rock, Arthur. Come on.
I apologize.
You're a rock.
But and it's just such a thrill. So I watch the program at least probably 4 days a week, and kept up all through the years. And which y'all probably don't. I've sent some letters in and a copy of a book I wrote a couple years ago. But I went through about the same time that y'all moved there to Dallas. And I remember when Irvin was going through the bypass surgery. I think that was in June of 2014, roughly.
That's right.
Is that about the period?
Yep.
I was also going through, I'd had a bad accident, another one. Y'all remember I'd had issues with my back. Well, I had another one, and I couldn't walk for about 4 years. And it took me about 12 years to get through. I mean, I was put on all kind of medication, pain medication, and it took me down a path that was, it was rough. But anyway, we're living now in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is a suburb of Pensacola. We're right next to Pensacola Beach, and actually I go to First Pentecostal Church in Pensacola. Brian Kinsey's the pastor, and actually we had a gentleman, I guess it was sometime last year. Y'all know someone named D.C. Hargrave?
D.G. Hargrove, absolutely.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but he came in. But I know that because he's the pastor at the church where Irvin was going.
Yeah,
and,
Arthur,
anyway,
we appreciate hearing from you so much. It's always good to hear from you. I remember your emails. That's mainly where you and I have communicated, and it's so good to hear your voice and to catch up on what's going on in your life. God bless you. Thank you for following Endtime and sticking with us after Irvin has passed. It's people like you who are helping make Endtime continue on, and we feel your prayers, and we're so appreciative of how you support all of us here through your prayers and communicating with us. So we're so thankful to hear from you, Arthur. God bless you. We're going to go to Utah now. Mary Ann, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Hi there.
Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi. Hey, this is kind of directed towards Judy.
Hey, Judy's getting all the spotlight today. What's going on?
Well, you know something, because I never get to say I love her. I don't know what you call them. They're not ads, but whatever they are. But anyway.
The commercial. You see her in the commercial.
Yeah, in her commercials. And she says, God bless you and we love you. Well, I'm trying to say God bless you and I love you, Judy. And the other thing is, at the end of one of your other advertisements is
she says Endtime's not going anywhere.
Yes, I love that.
Me too. I love it a lot.
And I thought if you did, then the rest of nobody else's life would be complete.
Yeah, they told her when she was recording that, see, what a lot of people don't know, even unless they know her, that she has a sassy side to her. So they told her when we were recording that they needed sassy Baxter to step up and do this video clip, and I think she delivered quite well.
Oh, she did. Judy Sassy Baxter.
Yep, there you go.
Right.
I love that. So anyway, it's directed to I love you all, love the Joe Show, love everything, love y'all. Talk to you later.
God bless you, Mary Ann. Thanks for your call. Let's go to Michael in Missouri. Michael, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Hey, how's it going? Just want to say I love the show, the Joe Show for sure. We need the Joe Show.
Absolutely.
Quick question on this Great Friday weekend. I know your guys' view as far as like when it comes to the end times and America's role in the beast system won't necessarily be in America. Different people you talk to say, the Bible talks about how mark of the beast, everyone who doesn't take the mark will face the consequences. So can you kind of explain a little bit more as far as when it comes to the mark of the beast, how it's going to affect us in America, and will we be forced to take it in America? If not, will there be persecution in America? And then God bless you guys.
Now, Michael, before Doug dives off into this, I got to warn you, we only have like a minute and a half left, and this is something we've talked about for hours. So, are you already on Endtime Plus?
I am not.
All right. When Doug's finished, you stick around on hold, please, and we'll get your email address and give you 6 months of Endtime Plus for free, and you can go on there and watch literally dozens of hours on this very subject, but Doug does have a 2-minute version for a response for you as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you,
All right,
Michael.
Doug. 2 minutes.
All right,
less
so
than.
yeah, absolutely we don't believe that we'll be under the control of the mark of the beast because of the fact that we see Revelation 12:14, where we see the eagle's wings helping Israel, and it's during the time of the Great Tribulation. So that's one of those key factors. We also know that Revelation 13:1 and 2, the eagle's wings are not in that one world government beast. Now, we do think that there would be a possibility for people that want to be part of a global currency. If they're in this country, they would be able to sign up for that. But we don't believe that everybody here in the United States will be under that we'll have options of opting out of that and not face consequences to that, because America wouldn't be able to help Israel if we're under that mark of the beast. We know that Jordan is not part of it because of Daniel 11:41. It tells us that Jordan specifically is not part of that system. We also know that Israel is not part of that system because of Zechariah 14:1 and 2, where they are in control of Jerusalem until that one world army comes down on them and takes half of the city. So we understand that when we see that word all, it's not necessarily mean all. It means that those that are involved in this one world government, those that choose to take that mark, those are the all. All that do that will be forced to worship the beast. We also know that you can resist it if you're in a nation that is fully implemented there, that you can resist it if your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So that kind of excludes that all to a point to where we know people whose names are in the Book of Life are not going to take the mark, and we don't believe we will because of the fact that we're helping Israel. That was a little bit more than 2 minutes.
You're so great, Doug.
Thank you.
We didn't even get to tell them about how our prayer meeting, normally an hour, went 2.5 hours this morning.
That was amazing.
We didn't even get to tell them about the Trump team thing.
Right.
But maybe just a little teaser, so
Yeah.
maybe you'll come back next week.
Big news.
We'll have to just pray for us. That's all we can say for now. Don't forget to go to endtime.com and watch.endtime.com and access thousands of hours of content totally free for you. We'll be right back here on Monday at 3 p.m. Central Time.